We wanted to create a fun, non-judgmental space where women can talk about their shared experiences.
Here, we will normalize the challenges we face as females living in a society that dictates unrealistic and outdated expectations on what a woman should be.
Together, we hope to cultivate a supportive community of women who empower one another to courageously live unapologetically.
A quick disclaimer before we get started. Although Cindy and Danielle are licensed therapists, this podcast is not to be interpreted as therapy or a replacement of therapeutic services. It is strictly a conversation between two women about their experiences in the world. If you liked today's episode, please make sure to like and subscribe below. Also, follow us on all of our social media platforms at Unapologetically Females. With that being said, we hope you enjoy this episode.
Welcome back to another episode. Why did I say it like episode? From Minnesota.
From Minnesota?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So welcome back.
Welcome back.
We are here today to talk about self-esteem and, according to Cindy, other esteem.
Yeah, it's a thing.
She says it's a thing. And maybe once you tell me what the thing is, then I'll get it. Maybe I just haven't heard of it as that. Or maybe I'm just like not remembering because my brain is overloaded with too much, and then I'll sound like a real jackass when you explain. I'm like,
no,
duh.
I don't know.
Yeah, tell me.
No. I mean, it's kind of like a no-brainer, but...
Yeah, so you are kind of stupid, Danielle, but...
That's so not what I meant. That's totally how it came off.
Yeah, tell me all about it.
Yeah. Well, all right. So anyway, the reason that I thought that it would be good to talk about this topic is because it relates to women, because so many women have issues with self-esteem, right?
For sure.
I mean, because so much is expected of us by society, by so many areas of our life. But so self-esteem is what comes from within, right? It's what we hold our morals and our values, how we hold our morals and our values, how we project ourselves to the world. Other esteem is when we gather our esteem. Stop it.
As you're saying it, I'm like, I've got it. Continue.
See, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Other esteem is when we gain our esteem from other people or other things, right? So if we gain our esteem, for instance, a good example is when we were little and we had to hang out with a group of kids, and we gained our esteem from being part of that group.
Right.
Even if we didn't really enjoy those people or we didn't have the same morals or values, we kind of tucked ours under in order to be a part of that group. And so we gained esteem from being a part of that group. Same thing goes for the fancy sports cars and the big houses and the material things. Yeah. Exactly. Not that, I mean, that's what, life goals, but
right.
But it's gaining that esteem from owning those things or from other people seeing those things and then what they might think of us.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that gives me self-worth when, let's just say, when somebody compliments my whatever, right? Like
your fancy new sports car.
My fancy new sports car. Yeah, that is actually an example of other esteem, except for the fact that I just love cars.
Right.
So I really
are a car whore.
I am a car whore for sure. So I really did buy this for myself. But it, doesn't feel bad when some guy's trying to race me at a red light. I like that. Yeah.
Right. I mean, my husband's in love with the car. He's trying to barter with
I told him we can share custody.
Yeah, he loves it.
Yep.
Okay. Well, and that's interesting, or makes sense. And
so I guess the point of even talking about it is, how do we develop better self-esteem, especially in young girls, or even how do we change our self-esteem as we get older? And we have all of these messages of certain ways we're supposed to look and be and present, and where does our self-esteem fit into all of that?
Right. It's crazy because I think it's different too for boys and girls. I would imagine.
I think so.
Because my daughter, at the stage she's in, it's like, oh my gosh, the comparison, man.
Yeah.
To the girls and the cattiness and yeah, there's like one in particular little girl. I'm like, what? Like, why are you guys getting in a freaking pissing match essentially?
Right. Yeah.
Like, and she came home. This is so bad the other day and was telling me about it, which I've heard about this little girl. You know, she's like, and so bragged about blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, like let them, like, who cares? Let her brag. It usually bragging comes from a place of insecurity. You know, like you don't need to engage in it. Like, just let her be. And she came home the other day and like had enough. She goes, well, I told her my poppy's taking us on a cruise for spring break. What's your poppy doing for you?
Oh.
And I was like, no, you did not. No, be better than that. Like you don't need to,
One
know,
up. Yeah.
one up.
Mhm.
Exactly. Like that's, so it starts so young.
It starts so young, but she was grabbing for something to make the other girl jealous, right?
Yes, which is so catty. Like,
but totally age appropriate. Like she's only 9,
like
right?
the biggest thing I'm trying, like,
I mean, I know women at my age that still do that.
True, but
on
I'm
Facebook
trying. Like the one thing I care about at all about like how I'm raising my children. I don't care if they are the smartest kid in the class. I don't care if they're the best athlete in the world. I just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Don't be a dick.
Totally.
It's like literally, that's my expectation. Like the bar is just that basic for me, is be a good human being. Yeah. Don't be a dick to other people.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
Well,
So.
you brought up such a great point of comparison too. Like in the eating disorders clinic where I work, that is one of our biggest struggles is comparison is such a huge reason for restrictive eating disorders. And Rita can probably speak to this, but social media has increased that fivefold, I think. You know, like comparing ourselves to these people that have been fully altered, whether it be by a surgeon or by a filter, and then comparing people's lives and where did they go for vacation and where did they, right? And what's wrong with me? I didn't go to Tahiti or, you know, or relationships. I see that all the time too, right?
Yep.
Like these young kids getting engaged, but then the engagement has to be this huge show with photographers and all of these things, right? That's a form of other esteem too, right? Like posting all of these things about your life that look so grandiose and so great and perfect is other esteem. It's romanticizing.
Listen to Rita.
I know, right? She's a therapist in training.
Yes. There are TikToks. There's probably what is it, Reels on Instagram? I'm sure same thing, but of people who go through their monthly spending, like. And it's usually like wealthy, you know. Well, there's probably people that aren't wealthy that do it.
Yeah,
but like
I saw an SMU one.
Oh, I saw. There's this one girl that pops up on my feed all the time, probably because I like was fascinated with her video at one point.
Yeah.
And she's like crazy wealthy, young girl, and every month, I mean, spending obscene, and then they like. And it's like at the club, like we ordered 4 bottles of this and blah, blah, blah. And like the bar tab is thousands and thousands of dollars. And the tip is thousands of dollars. And it's like monthly spending of $100,000, you know, $80,000, you know? And so, you know, or if she bought, you know, another Birkin and like, it's like showing, or the jewelry or things like that. And I'm like,
well, yeah. So prime example, right, of other esteem, and like everyone at the club is going to be looking at me because I can buy all these bottles and do all this stuff. And then not only that, but the people that are hanging out with that person that's posting are getting other esteem for just being their friend and being there, the part of it, right? So I feel like self-esteem is kind of at risk right now. My question to Rita before we're smart enough to get her a mic was, Are there actually people that maybe anyone follows that post real stuff?
I would say influencer wise, less. Like there's people who are like our age, like is an example of that. She fully at some point halfway through high school was like, I'm not gonna curate my Instagram to a certain audience anymore. I'm just gonna post what I want to post. And I would say a lot of people have started to do that more, but I would say it's still curated very much
Right. Okay.
to portray a certain life or lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Influencer wise, I wouldn't say like I could think of too many real life posters when it comes to people with large followings.
Mm-hmm.
Because even like the ones that seem like they're real life posting, it's most likely also curated.
Right. So it's hard to know.
Image.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's so
How
true.
has growing up in a social media filled world impacted your self-esteem?
Also, I think with that, I think it also has to do with the fact that I'm the youngest in my family, that all my siblings dealt with social media as they grew up as well, but Jenny's 9 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
So we all experienced it differently, where I feel like they had each other and I went through it alone. And also with me being the youngest, I had the most freedom and I was able to look at whatever I wanted by age 7.
Right.
And I was just freely on the internet at that point. So I feel like, especially when it came to middle school, it hit much harder. I would say that you can tell when, with Snapchat and Instagram blowing up when I was 10, 11, by the time that I went into middle school, everything was already curated to that, like a specific trend, specific ways to do it, that like you almost fit yourself in that bubble to try to fit in. I would say it almost got worse though as I became older, going like high school 16 through 18, like specifically with like body image issues that got, like, I would say that is the worst of it.
Well, and growing up in Arizona is not easy for body image because for those of you who are not in Arizona, it's hot here all the time and people Rita's age walk around in bikinis basically and not much else. And so, yeah.
I would say that accompanied with the culture of like high school here is very different, I would say, than other states.
Yeah. How so?
For example, our friend moved from Indiana halfway through high school, and he said it was like the biggest culture shock coming to Scottsdale to come to our high school.
Okay. George has said that too when moving from Ohio.
Yes. Yeah. What was his experience?
That a lot of it went from people who are, it's very a tight-knit community where he's from. They all hang out in the basement every night, not very much like going out, partying, not at all, like not in their day-to-day lives at all, where he moved here and he looks to his left and there's a girl with like 3 rounds of lip filler. Looks to his right, there's girls with eyelash extensions.
Yeah.
I mean, I know somebody who got a boob job when we were 16.
Yeah.
So it's the culture shock of that, and then as well as that, I think people here, it almost like we all grew up quicker than others, and then that didn't have the same experience as us. And like the way people acted, the way people went out and drank, and like even like within like hookup culture, where like that wasn't, he explained to me that like that wasn't a thing. So like when someone walked up to him and was like, so and so wants to hook up with you, he was like, I don't want to date her. Like, that means I have to date her. Like he wasn't aware that like in most other places it wasn't normal to just do that, where I feel like it was very, very normalized for us, especially when we were just 16.
Sure. I'm curious if I wonder if that is exclusive or heightened to this area of Phoenix, or if
it's Arizona as a whole.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd
Or
be
if it's
curious.
coasts, right? Like West Coast versus Midwest versus East
I
Coast.
feel like it's almost coasts.
Yeah.
Because I would say many people that I've met that grew up in California very much had the same experience
Yeah.
as us.
Mhm.
I mean, even when I was in high school, like parties and hookups and blah, 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 and that was years ago.
Mhm.
So, and I grew up in California. Good question.
It's
I was thinking that too as Rita was talking, but then I think like, we're in North Scottsdale, Gilbert, Chandler, but then Tucson is wild, right?
Mhm.
And same types of things.
Mhm.
So is Tempe, right? So I feel like it's a statewide thing.
Interesting. Yeah.
Do you feel like self-esteem is kind of at risk because of the need to portray yourself as something other than what you are?
I would say yes and no. I would say yes in the fact that like it is hard to have these like ideals for yourself that are really hard to reach, especially if that's not
Right.
how you typically are living your life and you're trying to curate a certain image. But I would also say no because I think another aspect of social media is the boost it gives you, like ego wise.
Yeah.
Like if you get like 400 likes on your Instagram
Right.
post or 50 comments on your Instagram post, like that still feels good. But then also, like before, I mean, at least everyone I know, when we post an Instagram post, all of us will post it and then turn off your notifications because you're like, I don't want to look at it.
Okay, that's
Like,
smart. Yeah.
I don't want to know what it is. And I feel like that also came with time.
Yeah. Maturity.
And like we're now, I mean, also looking at it is like stressful because you're
Yeah.
like, I don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
But I would say it's almost both because it gives you the boost you need that you're looking for. But
Unless you don't get the number that you want.
exactly.
Yeah.
So like it can go both ways. It just depends on how it goes after you post.
I just find it so fascinating that
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's fake. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like it's honest. It's through a device, And so it's like and I know that it's normal now. Like this is just the world we live in, and that young adults and like this is their experience, and but like that is so distant and foreign to me.
Right.
In that I post something,
Yeah.
and it's like I
know, but we're old.
I know, I understand that. No, I get that. But I just think like this is it's just such a new ball game we're playing. Like it's a totally, and to grow up under such stressful circumstances, like
sure.
it's a pressure cooker, and like it's so dangerous. It's so dangerous to constantly be seeking validation from somebody that you may have never met.
Right.
Ever. Like that you don't know, they don't know you, they don't hold a place in your life. There's no value. There's no like, and yet they can make you or break you.
Right.
And it's like, that is so dangerous. So how, like, you're fighting an uphill battle, like to just have any sort of self-worth, self-esteem, when you're exposing yourself, or, when you are dependent on, or not even dependent necessarily, some people maybe, but even just carrying the weight of what Rita just described, of like, okay, I'm going to get this validation and through likes and comments, or if I don't get them, then how that impact, like either way, it's really unhealthy.
Yeah.
Like it's, it's such, so it's like, how do you raise kids in a social media filled world that instills,
that have strong self-esteem,
self-worth, self-value, value, all of that, like knowing your worth, and it doesn't come through the form of a like or a comment of an individual that you've never met or doesn't hold any significant place in your life.
Right. Yeah, like when we were growing up, the only people that could give us a mean comment were the people right in front of us or our
Right.
classmates, right? Now you could have somebody in Europe telling someone in Arizona that their outfit sucks. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
And like then that impacts them.
For sure. So how do you, Rita, raise somebody with solid self-esteem?
Honestly, I feel like it's almost just let them learn it themselves. Just because, like, I would say it didn't really hit me till like maybe 18 or 19. That I was just like, why do I care? Why do I care? I guess in my way of doing it is that I feel like at some point I realized that I was very much focusing on something that didn't really matter in the end. And so then I feel like I just channeled that energy into just like hanging out with my friends instead. You just kind of, I feel like either
Surround yourself with the people that increase your self-esteem.
and that don't care about
Right.
if your Instagram looks good,
Other,
or
yeah.
just surrounding yourself within people that you know care about you and also support you. Also just reminding whoever it is that like it's not real. It's just a screen.
Yeah.
That's so hard to understand too, right? Like we're just such a technological society now where everything is on a screen that like it's hard to differentiate between almost what's real and what's not real. For sure.
Yeah.
But my thought was, what would you do to foster Harper's self-esteem in today's social media environment?
Yeah, it's hard because we have pretty strict limitations on that. I have a pretty hard line of no social media, but I do allow her to watch YouTube. And you're still exposed. So she does not have a phone. She has a tablet. So, I mean, I get it. It can still, like she can still
Right.
text and FaceTime from it. Like, but she does not have a device attached to her 24/7, where she takes on the go.
But she might be surrounded by kids who do,
Sure.
right? On
Right.
the playground or in the classroom.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not all parents have the same
Right.
rules too.
Yeah.
So what she,
Or you
is
might be the
exposed to.
youngest of however many, and
Yeah.
you're exposed to what your older siblings are
right,
exposed to.
Right. Yeah. It's hard because I don't think I think we're all just trying to do our best in what we think is best for our kids. And so it's not going to look the same, across households, and no judgment for people who do it differently. Like, again, we're all just doing our best to try and make, to raise like strong, healthy, confident, safe kids. But yeah, right now it's a hard boundary of no social media. And, she'll do, like when she's with, sitting with myself or my husband, and like we'll do like silly Snapchat, like filters and stuff together. Or, if like I did a birthday post for her the other
Right.
day, and like I let her read the comments but it's like from our family,
Right.
of people who commented on it.
I commented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, things like that. But there's like, she doesn't have her own accounts or anything like
Right.
that. And I have no intention of allowing that anytime soon. We may be the unpopular parents
Right.
in that
Yeah.
sense. And,
Yeah.
and
But then
that will be
that's
okay.
hard as a parent too, because, when kids don't have social media and all of their friends do, then they get left out.
I know.
And that's a real thing. Like,
And you want your kid to
you
fit
want
in.
your kid
You
to fit
do.
in.
I
You
know.
want your
Yeah,
kid to be
it's so hard.
happy and to be asked to things, and you don't want them to feel left out by any means. So, yeah. What do you think, Rita? What do you think is a good age to start at social media?
I'm trying to think, just because, I mean, I feel like I've heard a bunch of people my age be like, so we're all in agreement. We're not giving our kids phones until they're like 15, right? I didn't get my first phone till 8th grade, but I did have an iPod Touch that would make me be able to use Snapchat or Instagram. But my dad's rule was, and I was not until 17.
Okay.
But my mom was like, no, you can have one. And I was like, great, awesome. But that's also like divorced parents wanting them to do it differently.
Right, yeah.
Sure. But I would say, I don't know, it's just hard because I feel like there is no perfect age for it because everyone's at such a different maturity level. That I think that by the time, like, some kids are 13, they should be fine, but some probably shouldn't.
Right.
I also feel like because of the different maturity levels or different people going through things that, like, it's almost, I don't know, like, if my kid has more anxious tendencies, I'm not going to give them a phone for a long time.
Right. Well, I know that one of the first things they do in mental health when people check into a residential program is they take their phone for the whole time. And people who walk out are like, that was fabulous.
Right.
Like, I didn't want to give it up, but now that I haven't had it for 6 weeks or whatever it's been, it's like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah. I haven't been without a phone since
Ever.
I was like 12.
Yeah.
I've never had any time without it since I was like 12 years old.
Yeah.
So if it goes by maturity, then Harper can have a phone tomorrow and Hendrix can have a phone at 25.
Yeah. I even think, just brain development wise, I'm like, I just don't think that, I don't know.
Well, I mean,
regardless of maturity, like I think that there are some kids that can handle and digest certain things, but like you're not going to outrun biological development, right? And so your brain just is not developed enough to absorb and process the things that you are exposed to on social media at the rates that you're exposed to it. And so there's going to be consequences of that.
Right. Well, your prefrontal cortex or your reasonable mind is not able to see the means to the end, right? Like, if I post this, this could happen.
Right.
I mean, until you're like, what, 26?
Yeah. And even at that, like, I mean, we still have grown adults that are negatively impacted by the effects of social media and comparison and all of that. So it's not that you're excluded from the consequences of social media when you're an adult.
No.
But your brain is developed more, and hopefully you have a more secure, stable foundation of who you are as an individual so that you can either process the negative effects in a healthy way, seek support if you need to, or it doesn't impact you. Like, you know, so that's really, I think, the big, for me, like when I think about letting my kids have a social media account, I've told Harper, you know, you're not getting, you know, until you're, I think I've changed between 16 and 18 where I'm like, when you're out of the house, you can do whatever you want. Like, I also recognize that may not be realistic. And there will come a time when all her friends have something and she doesn't.
Yeah.
Just like for my son, we were, you know, my husband and I were like, we're not even buying the gaming device. Like, we're not going to buy the gaming device because he's not going to be stuck in front of TV all the time. Like, and because it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing as social media.
For sure. Yeah.
You have kids that are, you know, just that addiction. And there's like the, I don't even know what it's called, but like you're playing with other people, like the live stuff, and they're talking and that can turn really unhealthy too. And so, you know, I'm not saying that my kids can never have it. And I'm sure one day, you know, it may have, we'll break down and buy something. Like, I get it.
What'll happen is Harper will get it really late and Hendrix will get it a lot younger.
Yeah, right.
Because that's what happens with the first kid and the second kid.
Right. And I get that. It's, you know, it sounds great as I say it today. Just like I was like the best parent on the planet before I ever had children. Like, it's, you know, we all have these ideas and we all think we're going to, so it's, you know, I'm not trying to be on, you know, a soapbox by any means.
No, you're just giving us how you would like it to look.
Yeah, I would love for it to turn out that way. And I also am realistic that
probably
things are going to happen. We're going to adjust, you know, just like we're not going to buy anything when we go to the store and, you know, we walk out with a stupid stuffed animal that we don't need or something ridiculous, you know? So
the third one that month.
Yeah,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm realistic in that sense, but it's so important though, I think, for us to be mindful of these things and do everything we can to build a solid foundation for our kids to have strong self-esteem, self-worth, know that their worth is not dependent on the material things they have or on comparison, to others. And also really instilling, like, you don't know what happens in someone else's household.
Yeah, 100%.
Like,
or you don't know what that post really represents. Yeah.
You have no idea. And so sure, it looks good, it sounds good, whatever it may be, but it's, you just don't know. And I get that that's a hard concept to digest and accept as a child. But I think if we continue to remind our children that, like, hopefully one day it clicks.
It clicks, yeah. Yep. One of the best things you can ever hear as a mom is, your child is so nice to all the other kids. Right? Like, I love that. Yep.
Yeah, don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
Be a nice kid.
Yeah.
Be confident in what you have.
Yep.
Know your worth. Know you matter. Know you're loved.
Yep.
All those things. So thank you, Rita.
Thank you,
for
Rita, for
hopping
joining
on.
us.
First
Yes.
one.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yay.
As always, I'm Danielle.
And I'm Cindy. Thanks for joining us.